Hello everyone, and welcome back to Disney News Channel. I've been doing the same thing for a little while, so I thought, let's mix it up a little bit today and do something completely different. We're going to talk about Netflix's Stranger Things Season 1. Also, before we get started, just a reminder to like and subscribe, and also check out the comments for the trivia question of the day. So, episode 1 starts in Hawkins, Indiana, sometime in 1983, with a mysterious character breaking out of Hawkins' lab. We then go to the theme song, which is a brilliant song with a synthesizer that gives off and sets up the creepy atmosphere of the show. We then go to our main characters, Mike, Dustin, and Luke, playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I just love how naughty and relatable these kids are. I also love how all the sets feel like they're from the 80s. Not one thing feels like it's out of its time, sucking you in to this 80s world. But anyway, it's getting late, and they all have to go home. You can tell this is a show from the 80s, since no parent these days would ever allow their kids to ride their bikes home at night. So Will is riding home when he sees a big dark creature outside of Hawkins' lab and swerves to avoid it, crashing his bike in the process. But ends up leaving the bike and running home. But it's too late. The monster has come and taken him away. This scene does a great job at subtly introducing us to the first creature of this new mysterious dimension. The next morning, we are introduced to another main character named Harper, the chief of police in Hawkins, Indiana. A person who is very broken and has a lot of potential for a great character. We then cut to Joyce and Jonathan, Will's mother and brother, who realize Will didn't come back last night. Dun dun dun! And we get a beautifully acted scene of Jonathan feeling responsible for Will's disappearance, since he was the one who was supposed to pick him up. This isn't just one acted scene, by the way. This actor does an amazing job at being this person who has a very dark past, but just doesn't really like to show it. That day at school, Mike's sister Nancy is talking to her friend Barb, who asks if Steve and Nancy have started dating yet. To which Nancy kind of just shrugs this off and is just kind of like, yeah, whatever, it's cool. Joyce goes down to the police station, and we get another great scene where we get to see the contrasting personalities between Joyce and Harper, with Joyce's stoic belief that her son is alive, that he is out there somewhere, with Harper's kind of just seen it all, not too concerned attitude. Joyce is also one of the best moms for how well she knows her son and how she's able to use that information in a crisis. We then cut back to the mysterious person from the opening, wandering into a restaurant called Benny's Diner. I wish Benny was a little more interesting of a character, and at least had some sort of backstory. Maybe he has some sort of connection to our mystery that we just don't know about yet. So anyway, Harper finds Will's bike and eventually goes back to show Joyce. And I think this is where Harper really starts to come into his own, being able to exactly deduce what happened the night Will was taken and exactly the steps he took. That night, they set up a search party for Will, and Clark, the boy's teacher, and Harper, they have a really nice conversation about Will, and Harper mentions that he used to have a daughter himself that lives with her mom, except we learn from a throwaway comment after this is finished that his daughter doesn't live with her mom. In fact, she's dead. I absolutely love this. First off, it's absolutely brilliant that the last bit of information didn't come from Harper, but somebody else. Since Harper is just too far gone and just doesn't want to talk about it, which is absolutely heartbreaking. I also love how this adds a new dimension to Harper, really emphasizing how he does feel these things. He does have feelings. He just really, really doesn't like to talk about them because it's just too painful for him. This also sets up a great parallel between Joyce and Harper, faith in their kid. We then cut back to Mike's house. He calls the remaining 3 on his walkie-talkie, and they all agree to go out and look for Will. They enter the forest where Will crashed his bike, and they find the mysterious character and take her home. So episode 1 has great character building and introduces us to the world we will be exploring in a very effective way. Episode 2 opens with Harper going to tell Joyce that he still has not found Will, that she talked to Will in the wall the previous night, further showing how Joyce is the best mom for believing in her son. They still haven't heard anything from Joyce's ex-wife, so Harper decides to go and talk to Looney Byers himself. Jonathan wants to come with him, but Harper insists that he stays here and takes care of his mom. I kind of wish this conversation just went on a little longer, and we could have learned more about Looney and their relationship by Jonathan's description of their marriage. The hunt for Will continues, and some of the officers are calling Joyce crazy for believing her son is alive, to which Harper interferes and insists that they show her the proper respect. This is what I like about Harper, a man with a cold exterior, but cares very deeply for the people around him, in a very angry and sometimes aggressive way. A man of justice, if you will. Steve invites Nancy to a party at his house, and they see Jonathan hanging up a poster for Will. You know, when I first started episode 1, I thought Nancy was gonna be this kind of wishy-washy kind of girl who just kind of follows the crowd and is just not very interesting. But no, I think this was a really nice scene between Joyce and Jonathan, where Nancy has to be kind of pushed to do the right thing and almost forget about being popular. So Mike decides to stay home with 11. Will shows her around the house, and she points to a picture of Nancy saying, "pretty." This is the scene where I was really starting to buy the chemistry. Anyway, Mike's mom is home and 11 has to hide in the closet, which triggers a pretty traumatic flashback for her of 11's pretty traumatic flashback of Dr. Brenner, who she refers to as father, ordering her to be put in a deprivation tank, but demanding to be let go. Mike soon lets 11 out and is just in complete tears over the flashback. These flashbacks in this show are amazing. Either fleshing out a character in a really, really heartbreaking and emotional way, or they are extremely funny. Jonathan finally reunites with the Looney Byers and is completely unaware of what is going on, and jokingly says that Joyce misplaced one of her kids. Jonathan has a look around, and Will is nowhere to be seen. Before leaving, gives Looney a poster of Will and says, just in case you forgot what he looks like. I really like this character, and I hope he will return later on in the series, and we could learn more about his relationship with Joyce and the trauma it caused Jonathan. But also, we can learn more about his story and if he really does care for his kids in his own twisted way. Because when he says that I wish you guys lived closer, I really do feel bad for him, and he is saying it in a mean way, but I get where he's coming from. But anyway, no time for that, guys. It's time to go to the party. Nancy and her friend Bob have a great time, and Nancy goes up and starts to change into some dry clothes after the swim, but ends up sleeping with Steve while Bob waits outside by the pool and is just kind of depressed before getting dragged into the parallel dimension by a creature. I did not see this coming, guys, and I think that this is a great way to further Nancy's character arc, where she needs to forget about being cool and do what is right. Meanwhile, Jonathan is lurking in the bushes, taking photos in hopes of finding Will, but ends up taking a picture of Nancy in the nude. The next episode starts with Barb in the Upside Down, calling to Nancy as the monster that brought her there devours her. Notice how there is no score in the Upside Down, just eerie silence. I also love the particle effect they added, giving this new dimension a completely different feel. Nancy wakes up and decides to go home and let Steve sleep, but her mom catches her. I don't really know how to feel about this scene, and kind of feels like Nancy's forgotten character arc, since her mom just isn't really that important to the story, putting a much higher focus on the relationship with her brother Will instead. At school, Nancy notices Barb is missing, and that everyone is staring at her. Back at Mike's house, 11 wanders upstairs and finds a Coke commercial, which triggers another one of her memories. This memory shows why I don't really like Dr. Brenner that much. He just isn't that threatening until the end, acting more as a father to 11 than a villain. We then go with Joyce to the store. Where she walks, and we see just how hard she walks. But also, she's kind of a pushover. What I love about the scene is that it shows us a new side to her character that will stand up for herself, that will demand to be treated fairly. We then cut back to Harper, who has managed to get inside Hawkins' lab to look for Will. This is such an intriguing mystery to me, because the interesting part is that they find a piece of cloth, of like the hospital gown that 11 is wearing, but here's the thing, they're not actually tracking Will like they thought. They're actually tracking 11, and the boys are actually tracking Will. Back at school, Jonathan is going home, but is stopped by Steve and his friends, who want to see the pictures he took the previous episode. And one of them, again, Nancy is in. After seeing them, Steve gets super jealous and basically goes on a tirade and destroys Jonathan's camera. I love how they start Steve's relationship. I love how they start Steve's redemption off early on in the season and not leave it for the last couple episodes, which a lot of shows are guilty of. This is also not just a turning point for Steve's character, but also for Nancy's character, who ends up teaming up with Jonathan to bring Will and Barbara back. We cut back to 11, who is with Mike, Dustin, and Luke, to take them to where she thinks Will is. This is a very subtle way to foreshadow what the new dimension is without being in the dimension. This is also where we get to see the differences in the trio. Specifically how Luke thinks 11 is kind of a weirdo and doesn't really trust her. We then cut back to Joyce, who has set up a system to talk to Will using the lights. The thing that surprises me is that we have spent so little time in the other dimension, and yet we already know so much about it. The group is on its way back when they find out that the police have found Will's dead body, and everyone goes home thinking all is lost. I think this was the best episode yet, with its subtle character and world building, and setting up things for a very impressive second half. That's all for now, everybody. Stay tuned for more videos coming soon. Please like and subscribe.